don't think I'm grateful, just because you paid that much money.
Tina, who is my son Philip's wife, was suffering from a rare disease. So I had paid $28,000 for her treatment, draining all my savings, unable to bear seeing her in pain. However, it was how they treated me. Are we family? If so, you're supposed to do this much, right? As Philip hurled these words, but once you get the money, you're useless. Got it. You're an eyesore, so don't bother us anymore. Even Tina uttered such harsh words. Who do they think I'm paying this money for? It's hard to believe that someone in need of surgery and suffering from illness could act like this. Afterward, when Tina's primary doctor disclosed something to me, I decided to take my revenge. My name is Helen. Now, in my mid-50s, life seems to be on the downhill. I was dedicated to my work in my youth. But before I knew it, I was approaching 40 and still single. Then, during a mistake at work, Alexander, who would later become my husband, helped me out. Thank you. You saved me. I don't know what I would have done without you. I was truly grateful to him. That incident brought us closer and we eventually started dating. It was a late-blooming romance. We would go out for meals after work, or I'd cook at his place on our days off. As he lost his wife, he lived with his middle school son, Philly. Whenever I visited, Philip clearly showed his dislike for me. He seems to obviously avoid me. It's just his age. I guess he'll come around. He didn't seem to take it too seriously. I need you, and Philip needs a mother. If it's okay with you, would you marry me? And then he proposed to me. I had resigned myself to being single for life, but the idea of living the rest of my days as Alexander's wife and mother to his son didn't seem bad, so I accepted his proposal. Thus my life in Alexander's home began. Having lost my parents and having no siblings, perhaps I longed for a family. I was truly happy to have my own family. Philip stubbornly avoided me. Good morning. Even when I greeted him in the morning. Oh yeah, that was all he would say. Still, I believed that he would eventually open up to me. Philip would retreat to his room after meals, and we hardly talked. Alexander didn't say much about it either. I didn't understand the dynamics of a father and son, but it seemed Alexander saw a bit of his younger self in Philip. However, Alexander was diagnosed with cancer 2 years later and passed away despite treatment. I felt as if my heart was being torn apart, losing my family again. Philip was still in high school, a young man with a future ahead of him. Thanks to the assets Alexander left in the insurance money, I could support him through college. He found a job, and I thought my responsibilities were finally over. But years after Alexander's death, Philip was now fully independent. He still didn't talk much with me, but showed no intention of leaving the house. I got something to talk about. Is that okay? It was rare for him to initiate a conversation. Of course. What is it? He said he wanted to get married and asked if they could live here together. Why hesitate? It's your house. You should live together. I was happy. In nearly 15 years of marriage to Alexander, I don't think he and I had ever really talked. I thought he had finally grown up. Philip and his wife decided against a wedding ceremony and just submitted their marriage registration to start their cohabitation. Oh, nice to meet you. The wife's name was Tina. She looked somewhat pale.
She's got a chronic illness and is frail. You'll handle all the housework.
Was he still not accepting me as a mother?
We're relying on you.
Tina said with an untroubled smile, leaving everything to me might be too much. It would be nice if they could help a little. But from that day, I started being treated like a housemaid by the couple. Tina always had something to complain about the meals I prepared. I'm sorry. Do you have dietary restrictions due to your illness? I'll be more careful next time. Please forgive me. I wasn't sure how to interact with her.
She needs to regularly visit the hospital because of her condition. Be considerate, will you?
I understood that she had a chronic illness requiring regular hospital visits. Indeed, she seemed to be spending entire days at the hospital about 3 times a week. I was working full-time, so I didn't know much about their daytime activities, but I could fully appreciate that it must be tough. Still, I wondered illness she had. Even with these questions, I continued living with them.
So make sure you clean our room too. I'm tired, so at least ready a supper for me. Seriously, you're so inconsiderate.
Philip would say. Then Tina would assertively add, I get dizzy and feel like I might collapse if I move too much, so I'll leave all the cooking and laundry to you. One in this house. I felt like I was their maid. Christmas a month after we started living together, Philip revealed Tina's illness during a conversation.
Can I talk to you about something?
He approached me uncharacteristically humbly. Fairly apparently, Tina had a kidney problem and was undergoing dialysis 3 times a week at the hospital. Each session cost about $300, totaling around $4,000 per month, and approximately $48,000 a year. A staggering amount.
She's on a waiting list for a transplant, but that's gonna cost money too. Can we figure something out?
He continued, looking serious. How much will it cost?
Between $28,000 and $30,000. I guess if she gets the surgery, she won't need weekly hospital visits anymore, and we won't have to spend more. Please help us.
I'd never been asked for something so earnestly before. Okay, I'll give it. Nothing is more important than life. Tina's attitude seemed more understandable, considering she was battling a serious illness. They had already incurred a significant amount of debt for medical expenses. To protect the future of these 2 young people, I promised to pay. Here's $28,000. Use it wisely. I withdrew the money from the bank and handed the envelope to Philip.
Thank you. I feel bad about this.
I was a bit concerned about his reaction upon receiving the money, but I assumed it was just the stress of handling such a large sum. However, the next day...
You think we're grateful just because you paid? You think we're family, right? Then it's only natural for you to pay. Once we get the money, you're useless to us. Can you stay out of our lives for good?
Tina continued, her face pale.
Honestly, can you leave our house soon? I've been tolerating you so far, but you're just an eyesore.
I couldn't believe these unexpected words from Philip. Was I the only one who thought we could become a family? Unable to bear the sadness and frustration, I packed my things and left the house. Having impulsively left the house, I had nowhere to go as I had no other relatives. For the time being, I needed to find a place to stay. I had thought of Philip and Tina as family and wanted to be a real family. That's why I listened to Tina's story about her struggle with a serious illness and decided to pay for the surgery. I was carried away by emotion and handed over a large sum of money, but when and where would the surgery take place? Was it even confirmed? I often heard about waiting lists for transplant surgeries, but wasn't that usually for hearts or something similar?
I'm sorry, but due to privacy concerns, we can't disclose information about our vacations. But your family, we would remember.
The word family stung my heart.
Yes, she's my son's wife who lives with us, and she always seems unwell.
Even though I insisted, the hospital couldn't provide any more information. I contacted several other hospitals that seemed relevant, but again, patient information was not disclosed. However, I learned that dialysis treatment is indeed expensive, but there are subsidy programs available that reduce monthly costs to around $100. If that's the case, Philip's claim of being burdened by debt from treatment cost seems very dubious. Upon reflection, many questions arise. Why didn't I realize this sooner? In my eagerness to be liked by them, I had lost sight of myself. I decided to hire a private investigator to look into their backgrounds. I felt guilty for suspecting my own family, but I was concerned about the whereabouts of the $28 I had given them. If it truly went towards surgery costs, that was fine. But if they treated me as a nuisance, I could write it off as severance money. I searched online for a detective agency and visited their office. The private investigator listened intently to my story.
So you want to know if your son's wife is really undergoing treatment? Is that it?
The investigator asked.
Yes. They suddenly changed their attitude and kicked me out of the house right after I gave them money for the surgery.
I replied tearfully.
That's terrible. Perhaps they were after your money from the start. I'll look into it, so please leave it to me.
The private investigator assured me with a gentle smile. Trying to reassure me, he answered with a gentle smile. I decided to wait for the results of the investigation, feeling anxious. It took about 2 months, but I finally got a call from the detective agency. Since it's not feasible to stay in a hotel for months, I rented a reasonably priced house nearby and started living alone.
Let me start with the conclusion. Tina does not seem to be undergoing artificial dialysis treatment.
Hearing that, I felt as if something that had been nagging at the back of my mind had been resolved.
So, what about her pale complexion and the hospital visits?
I asked him.
It seems she does have symptoms of anemia, but nothing immediately life-threatening.
Siren's quite a revelation. I was speechless at his report.
What about the money needed for surgery?
In response to my question, he said,
It seems they just wanted money to have fun. They were borrowing from all over, you know. Looks like they took advantage of your kindness and deceived you.
Anger welled up from the depths of my heart. I was genuinely concerned, and to think Philip and Tina exploited that for their gain infuriated me. I decided to stop showing unnecessary concern. No matter how much I invested emotionally, they were ultimately someone else's children. I thought I had devoted myself for nearly 15 years, but that feeling suddenly cooled. From that day, I began plotting my revenge. Some time passed, and Philip repeatedly called my mobile phone, but I completely ignored him. Half a month later, when the time seemed right, I responded to his call as if nothing had happened. It's been a while. Has Tina's surgery been scheduled? Is she doing well? When I said that, what the hell is going on? Since the other day, real estate agents and surveyors have been coming and going, and I thought it was strange. Then I hear this house is on the market. This is my house, isn't it? Who said you could sell it? He was furious. His voice through the mobile phone was so loud it almost hurt my ears. Your house? No, it was built by Alexander. And now, I'm the owner. You essentially evicted the landlord. I don't need to live there anymore, so I decided to sell it and buy another property. You better start looking for a new home. As I said so, his voice grew even more furious. How dare you? This house was built by my father, so it should be mine now that he's gone. What right do you have to claim it, coming in later? He yelled angrily. So you know nothing. Well, I never told you. I explained to him about the time Alexander passed away. When Alexander died, Philip was a teenager, deeming him too young to manage the assets. Alexander left a will entrusting me with everything, including enough savings for Philip's college education. But take care of Philip were Alexander's last words. I never told Philip that. I planned to eventually transfer the land building and Alexander's assets to Philip, and didn't see the need to mention it. I never imagined being betrayed like this. You could have at least pretended to get along as family, even if just in form. Then, eventually, it could have been yours. I said with a tinge of regret. Or are you planning to buy the land and house yourself? That's as a family sale. I might give you a discount. I teased Philip. It was supposed to become mine in the first place, right? Just transfer it to me already. He replied irritably, whether it's a gift or transfer, it's not free, you know? Understand? Driving me out was a mistake. I was determined not to back down.
The $28,000 you took from me, that wasn't for surgery, was it? I had everything checked. The story about Tina needing a transplant surgery to survive, being on dialysis, all lies, right? Just to get money for yourselves. I'll never forgive you.
As I declared so, wait, hold on.
She really is frail. You have to believe that.
He started to panic. Even that is just a case of severe anemia, not immediately life-threatening. Be prepared. I will get back the money you scammed from me, I said firmly. Then he retorted, it's all nonsense. Besides, we're family, right? There's no way this can be fraud.
Emily, you say. How can you even say that? Since I married your father, not once did you seriously talk to me. Still, I tried my best to watch over you, keeping my promise to Alexander. Do you understand?
I felt like crying, thinking back on everything that had happened.
Just because we're family, it doesn't become a non-crime, does it? But sadly for you, I plan to sue for being deceived. Isn't that what happened? You lied and took money from me.
After I finished speaking, how could you? He was speechless on the other end of the phone.
I will consult a lawyer based on the investigation results from the detective agency. Can you discuss the rest with them? After all, you don't think of me as your mother, and I no longer think of you as my son. You're nearly 30, handle the rest yourself.
With that, I hung up the phone. The dispute with Philip and Tina didn't end easily. They claimed residency rights and refused to vacate the house, so we ended up negotiating through representatives. However, their act of deceiving me and taking my money backfired, and the negotiations broke down. They were forced to move to Tina's parents' house. It seems they concocted the lie about needing money for fun and to pay off debts they had accumulated elsewhere. They based their story on Tina's chronic anemia and frequent doctor visits, eventually landing on artificial dialysis and kidney transplant after some online research. They must have thought it was dramatic enough, and that someone like me could be easily fooled. Though I was at fault for not verifying the information and giving them money, taking advantage of someone's feelings to scam money is unforgivable. I realized that no matter how much you try to connect with some people, it just doesn't happen. As a result of the lawsuit, they were ordered to repay the money they took from me. Since they couldn't pay it all at once, they agreed to monthly installments. Additionally, they were ordered to compensate me for 15 years of mental anguish. I ended up buying a room of condo with the money from selling the house and land and now live there. Living alone for the first time in 15 years is quite comfortable, but sometimes I feel lonely. Then, during those times, I think family would be nice, but I can't live with someone else now. Move into Tina's parents' house. The couple is working to repay the money they stole from me. Tina, who claimed she was too anemic to work, is now working to pay off the compensation, pushed by her parents who reasoned that if she had enough energy to have fun, she could earn some money. As for me, nowadays, even with close relatives, caregiving is hard. It feels more difficult with someone you're not related to by blood. Rather than being cared for with caution, I think it's easier to pay for proper care. That might be the way things are now, but it's still lonely. Those 15 years I devoted without a second thought, though ignored by Philip, now seem like a time that let me experience what family is. I don't know how many years I have left, but I want to live without regrets.